This presentation has a lot of great information from Lynn Lampert of the California State University at Northridge. And let's go ahead and get started. So what is an annotated bibliography? This is a list of citations for books, articles, and documents, depending on where you find your source material. And each citation should be followed by a brief, and that's usually about 150 words. We're going to say 2 paragraphs for our particular purposes. Descriptive and evaluative paragraphs, which is the annotation. And the purpose is to inform the reader of the relevance, accuracy, and quality of the sources cited. It's also very helpful for you in the research process to be able to find sources, summarize them so you know what they're about, have a list of them ready so you can, when you start to write your final paper, you know where to find information that you need. So I think it's helpful. It's a little more formal way of taking notes for research material, but I think that it will give myself a clear understanding of whether or not you found reliable sources to use, and we can go from there. So I think it's a really good use of our essay time. So the process, creating an annotated bibliography calls for the application of a variety of intellectual skills. So that's good. You need to be able to use concise exposition, succinct analysis, and informed library research. So you have to be able to research your topic, both using the Crowder Library, your own school's library, and perhaps the internet as well. But you need to be able to concisely sum up the main points that are happening in that particular source, analyze whether the source is reliable, if the authors have presented their material in a way that will be appropriate for the final essay, and you're going to need to be able to find research that is reliable and appropriate. So we're not going to use Wikipedia, we're not using ehow.com, we're actually looking for scholarly sources, and you can do that through our library, which you'll definitely find sources that way in the Crowder Library from your own school's library, or even you can use things, search engines like Google Scholar, which is very helpful in finding research that's appropriate for academic essays. So the first thing you're going to do is locate and record citations for books, periodicals, and documents that may contain useful information for your topic idea. You're going to also examine and review the actual items. So that means you actually have to read what you have chosen and choose works that are appropriate for your essay, but also ones that give a variety of perspectives to your topic, because you don't want to have every source saying exactly the same thing, because then you'll just be using source material that's redundant. So we want to see a variety of types of sources and a variety of source information that's provided as well. The first thing that you're going to do is cite the source using MLA citation. You're going to then write a concise annotation, and I suggest having one paragraph that summarizes the central theme and scope of that particular source, and include some sentences that evaluate the authority or background of the author, perhaps comment on the intended audience. You could also compare and contrast this work with other works in your bibliography, or you can explain how this work illuminates your particular topic. The second paragraph should really focus in on that last element, on D, on explaining how this particular source can help you in your final essay. So when you are trying to appraise the book, so that means if you're looking at the source and trying to determine if it's reliable or if it's appropriate for your particular essay, there's some things that I'd like you to think about. So what are the author's credentials? So can you find the author's name in the source material? Are they affiliated with an appropriate institution? That might be a university or a particular journal. Do they have degrees in the area in which they're writing? So you look at the credentials of a source to determine if it's appropriate for an academic audience. Look at so have you seen the author's name cited in other sources or bibliographies? So you could even go and do a little bit of a Google Scholar search for that author's name. So then you're looking at, is the author respected in the field by other scholars? Other things you can look at is when it was published. If it's a really old document, I'm not saying you can't use old documents, but sometimes the material in the document is outdated just because of the year that it was published. So keep that in mind as well. Other things, so that's like, is the source current or out of date for your particular topic? Kind of relates to the same question above. Is this a first edition? Is it a multiple edition? What changes have been made? Has the source been published by a university press? If it has, it's most likely to be scholarly, so you'll probably be okay. Looking at, especially at internet sources, if you're looking at sources that are published by universities, it's probably going to be fine. Is it a popular magazine or a scholarly journal? Look at the difference between that. People magazine is a popular magazine. Scientific America might be a little bit more scholarly. So you look at different types of sources and what's appropriate for an academic audience. Scholarly type of material, so this is material that is reviewed by peers, that it is appropriate for a topic, and it isn't based on popular culture in terms of like who's getting married to whom and what's the latest trends. So we're actually looking for scholarly work that has been researched, developed, and published based on scholarly material. And then, of course, is the publication aimed at a specialized or a general audience? This really can help you in terms of determining if it's going to be appropriate for your academic audience or for yourself. If it's a very specialized topic or publication, that can make it, excuse me, oh goodness, that can make it harder to read for you. So, but really you can use specialized works. You just have to keep in mind that the audience that you have for your paper and your own abilities and understanding really specialized material. Other things to look at when you're trying to find reliable sources: does the source provide a bibliography itself? So does it cite other people, other sources? If it doesn't, this might put up a little red flag for you. Generally speaking, scholarly work is going to use outside source material, just like we do in essay writing. An academic scholarly journal will probably use some sort of bibliography. Is the information factual or is it opinionated? Is it propaganda? Think about the source that it is. Is it backed up by a particular organization that has a particular type of plan of action and things, which we're going to look at one in just a second. Not saying that you can't use sources that have a bias, but that it needs to be, you need to be aware of it, and it needs to be presented clearly that this is a biased material. You don't want to present something that's an opinion as a fact. Does the information appear to be valid and well researched, or is it questionable or unsupported by evidence? If it's questionable, I'd say why use it? Are the ideas and arguments advanced more or less in line with other works that you have read about the same topic? So are they synonymous with things that you have already read in other scholarly works? So does it kind of match up? Does the source extensively or marginally cover the topics? Or is it just kind of vaguely there? Why would you use a source that's marginally covering your topic? Is it primary or secondary in nature? Both of which types of sources are fine to use, primary source material and secondary source material, but just being aware of what kind of source material it is. And then you can also go through and look at critical reviews of the source that you're using, such as Book Review Index, Book Review Digest, or periodical abstracts. So you can find those in your local library. If you can find other critiques of that work, that's probably a good thing too. So here is an example of what you might use. So this is a journal citation from an online source that I found for a topic, for a potential topic for a paper. So in this citation you can find you'll need it has the basic structure of an MLA citation, of course. So we have the author's names, the article title, the title of the journal that it's found in, and it has a publication date, where on the web it's found, and when it was found. So we can obviously identify the article title, Free to Teach, What America's Teachers Say About Teaching in Public and Private Schools, School Choice Issues in Depth. Then we have the title of the article, or of the journal, Friedman Foundation for Educational Choice. And then it was found within ERIC, which is a search engine on the web, and then the date that it was found, which is today. So you can find all that information in your citation. Then once you have cited the source, you're going to describe the article. So 5 or 6 sentences, first of all, that includes information about the author of the article, the point of view that they're taking, the school of thought. You could even include things like, what type of article is it? Is it literary criticism? Is it historical, biographical? Other things you could include with an annotation could be, obviously you're going to include the biographical information, or bibliographical information, so the actual source material. But what are the qualifications of the author, perhaps, or the scope or main purpose of the work? If there are any biases, that might be important to express in your annotation. What's the intended audience, or the level of reading difficulty? Other things, so other areas of study that the authors have done, a summary content. So you're summarizing the material, but you're also kind of giving the audience of your annotation a clear understanding of the credibility of the article as well. And then, of course, you're going to include a paragraph that shows how this article could be helpful in your final paper. So this is the entire example from that source that I had earlier, by Forster and D'Andrea. So I have 2 paragraphs, like you can see here. The first one is going to be the summary of the material, and the second one is going to talk about how it's going to fit into my overall essay. So here we go. This study, conducted by Forster, D'Andrea, and the Choice Friedman Foundation for Education, shares findings concerning the differences between the perspectives of public and private school teachers. From the onset of the study, it's shown to have a bias toward school choice. However, the authors clearly indicate this bias is based on the scientific process of the study's clear findings. Look, I have in-text citation here, so anytime that you are citing or summarizing elements from the text itself, you still need to include in-text citation, even though we have the reference page citation up here, works citation. Some of the differences found in favor for teaching in private school include more job satisfaction, a safer atmosphere, more freedoms with book choice and curriculum development, and less overall stress in the workplace. And then I have citation. The author states this study analyzes data from the 2003-2004 Administration of the School Staffing Survey, a national survey conducted by the U.S. Department of Education. This information provided will ultimately prove the benefit teachers find in teaching at private schools. In my essay, I will argue that our current culture needs to shift the educational process into a more private school modeled process. This study will allow me to give the teacher's perspective